This meeting is allowed to be held remotely due to the governor's proclamation regarding the pandemic and extended by the more recent governor. And be forewarned that anything you say and share is being recorded, et cetera, et cetera. We'll take a roll call to make sure we have a quorum. MJ,
Here.
Ellie, did she say here? Oh, she said something, but we can't hear you.
Oh.
Carolyn
Here.
and Wayne.
So Wayne is just texted me saying he's having audio issues.
But if he goes like this, oh, he can't even hear us then, huh? And Timothy. One, two, we have a quorum because we have four. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order at 7:35. Approval of the minutes of October 29th. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the minutes of October 29th.
And a second?
Second.
Any additions or corrections? Hearing none. MJ,
Aye.
Ellie, Carolyn,
Aye.
Wayne.
Aye.
Oh,
There we
Wayne's
go.
with us. Great.
Sorry.
Tim is aye. Okay, that takes care of that. Payments and invoices do nothing. We're out of the.
Hey, I haven't gotten anything from my reimbursement yet. I can't hear you.
Did
I-
you submit?
Yeah, so I thought you were gonna submit something in the mailbox. I know.
I thought
So-
I thought I emailed it. Do I have to send a hard copy?
Well, I'm gonna see if I can, I did print the attachment. I'll see if I can pull it off with what they have. We'll see.
Oh, I can do a hard copy. Is that what you need? You need the form
June
plus the
likes hard copies.
Yeah, the thing that I think I was gonna go back and try to see if I could get more like of a real invoice from those email stuff that they had sent back and forth versus just your credit card thing.
There was an inv. I'll figure it out. I'll print it off and I'll submit it. It's all right.
Okay, well, put it into our mailbox because Tim needs to sign it.
Okay.
Okay, it's all a thing.
All good.
It's all a thing.
Don't worry. I'm not dying.
Yeah. It's a thing.
Sorry. Thanks.
Right, Carolyn, it's a thing.
It's a thing. And if it's not right,
It's
you'll
a-
find
yeah.
out.
Yeah.
We're scheduled for June at 7:45. She's in the audience, so
She
you can bring
is.
her in, but we won't start the conversation for a few minutes.
Okay. Maureen, you want to do that or you want me to?
I can add her.
All right.
So
Oh.
what we've done is we're going to have one presentation tonight from the Historic Commission in regard to their application. And then we have four applications, four project proposals scheduled for our next meeting. And then once we've heard those, we can begin the process of having more thorough discussion with everybody. And we'll, as a result of the sessions we have, we'll probably schedule follow-up meetings and try to get to a point where by February we're able to put valid warrant articles together. Hi, June. She's got a quiet, isn't she?
She's
Yes.
muted.
Can you
There
hear
she
me
is.
now? Can you
Yeah.
hear me? Yeah, okay.
We're
I
gonna wait. we're gonna wait a few minutes because you're scheduled for 7:45.
Okay. I don't know if I can get my video to work. I had, I was at a meeting on Friday morning and I couldn't get the video to work, so,
Well, we can
Okay.
hear you loud and clear, so
Yeah.
that's,
And we all know what you look like, June, so
Yeah.
we can fill in the gaps, I think,
all right,
sufficiently.
that's good, sounds good.
now, for some reason, Beth has put up a picture of something that it doesn't appear to be related to her at all, but
No.
anyway.
Mr. Chair, I have a
Yes.
suggestion. Maybe you could go ahead and do a quick review of the article for the Powder House. The members
Yep,
were
we
sent
could-
that, and we can get that knocked off.
We could do that. Have people had a chance to look at that?
I didn't, sorry.
Did anyone else?
Jim did earlier. Nothing
Sad.
jumped out at me.
And-
Yeah, no, they-
Hey, at least we're honest.
Ellie, you didn't look at it either? Now
No,
I'm really sad.
I'm
I
sorry.
looked at it.
Don't be sad. It's not a referendum on your sending it. It's a
Right.
referendum
It's
on
right.
reading it.
It's actually a reflection of how much we trust you.
Oh.
Because if we didn't, we would only know we read it.
Well, it has to be submitted when? Yesterday, huh?
Not exactly, but we don't have another meeting.
No. So
Let's just
we,
go over it.
Can you summarize? Someone?
Well, it's just the 2 pages, right? It's pretty
Yeah.
short and to
So-
the point.
Yeah, I mean, there's some, want me to try to pull it up? I don't want
Sure.
to go into, what you call it? June's situation here, take over her time. Are you able to see that or no? Let me see.
You know how to screen share?
Yes. Well, it's funny, I'm coming off of a webinar, a meeting, and they're just a little bit different,
Yep.
and it hurts my head a little bit. All right,
well,
let me see.
given the fact we've got 2.5 minutes before June.
Yeah, we'll do it after, okay.
do
I
it
just
after.
thought if
And
everybody.
this was what, the newsletter thing? The newsletter machine?
Yeah.
Yep, this is our next one. We'll have over a period of the year, I think we'll do about 5 or 6 submittals. They tell us when we're up.
I will read it right now.
Okay.
Hey,
Well,
there we
June's gonna
go.
be presenting. Yeah.
All right.
I will scan while I listen.
But I can screen share it after we're done with June. Unless you want to do it quick, I don't know. What do you guys want to do?
I mean, to me, it looks, good. One reason I didn't look over it, perhaps in a lot of detail before was it just, struck me as kind of, the kind of boilerplate what we're about. So I think
Well,
we
yeah,
trust
well,
you.
this,
I think
it's
Okay.
just where you are in your year right now, how the applications have come in, what you guys will
Yeah.
do next with the applications, the process, encouraging residents to, participate in the process if there's a
I just
a
read it.
project
It's
that
great.
seems interesting.
It's great.
Wayne
Good.
and MJ like it and I liked it. So if somebody wants to make a motion,
I move to approve the newsletter submission as written.
and anybody want to second that?
second,
And okay, any discussion? Everybody's all set? MJ,
aye.
Ellie,
aye,
Carolyn,
Aye.
Wayne,
Aye.
Tim is aye. Good. Okay, we've got that done. Thank you very much.
You did a
And-
great job, Maureen.
Thank
And
you.
look at that, you still have like 30 seconds.
Yeah. I was wondering though, when I send things out on Fridays, does that guy mess you up? Usually I try to send everything out on Thursdays for you,
No,
but this past
just
week.
crazy life.
Mm,
Yeah, that's.
That was an easy read. That was easy.
Okay, good.
It was accurate. It was encouraging all the right stuff.
All right, stuff.
Well, the
Well,
nice
it
thing is
was.
it's timely, you know, it
It
Yeah.
is.
and it keeps people informed. So that's what we really want to be able to do.
That's it.
Okay, 7:45. June, you have a
Yes.
proposal. Would you like to share your thoughts with us?
Yes, do you want me to read what's on the application or just talk about, or just take away from it?
Take away from it.
Okay. We chose preserving the clothing collection, preservation of the clothing collection, because it is big and we are strapped for space. So engaging a consultant it's Lynn Bassett, who is well recommended, and I did include her resume, which is pretty extensive. So
Yeah.
I don't think there's any question that she could help us. So we have, you know, a legacy of programming, you know, fashion programming that was really enjoyed, and even beyond Berlin. You know, I came to Berlin a little bit late to appreciate all of that, but it really is a popular and telling part of our collection. Clothing, you know, it's the biggest part of our material culture in the curatorial building. And the way that it's stored right now and the attention that we can give it is very small compared to the value of it. So with our space inadequacy, we really do need to assess what we have, because we really can't take in much anymore unless somehow we call what isn't valuable. And Lynn Bassett would be able to help us do that. I'm not sure if you want me to describe the collection we have, or what, you know, what kind of details would help.
Could you
make this
explain?
better understood.
Could you explain the volume of what you have that you're trying to
Sure.
whittle down?
Yeah, we have Barry did the best he could to approximate the number of items that we could have her look at, and it's about 500.
Wow.
This doesn't count the hats or any of the smaller accessories, shoes. We have some shoes. It doesn't even include the military uniforms. We felt that the military uniforms were important because they come from Berlin families, and it helps tell their stories. And we know we know whether they're from World War I or II or later. We do have a Desert Storm arrangement of boots, and I think we have a sort of a khaki outfit, you know, an informal outfit from Desert Storm. So we there's more than what we're asking her to assess, and for the money we've asked for, but it's a good beginning, and we really need a more sophisticated assessment than we were ever able to do with our volunteers. And the volunteers from the Berlin Art and Historical Society spent countless hours, learned how to pack with tissue in archival garment boxes, really have done a wonderful job in the past, but we need more than that now.
So the goals to weed down the, shouldn't say
Well,
weed because that's not right, but thin down the amount and
If
then
we-
and,
if
and
we've-
preserve them.
Yeah, if we've been keeping things that aren't valuable, then she will let us know and we can either return to the families if they're still here, or we can offer them in a way that's acceptable, especially if they've been accessioned with numbers. We can offer them to whatever the town will allow us to offload.
Sounds like a thought out plan.
Do you have any, so you said that about 500 in this sort of main grouping of them. Do you have
Right.
any guess
dress-
about
Dress-
how much of that would need to go? Like, are you talking about half of it, a third of it? Or is it really dependent on
It's really
exactly?
it's dependent on her assessment. I mean,
Okay.
we really don't want to get rid of anything that has community value. But from looking at the more modern things that have been donated, there's a distinct possibility that we could call more recent donations. But it might be 5%. We don't have the expertise to make those decisions.
Okay.
But we know we have to optimize whatever space we have, because that's all we've got. The town hasn't made any offers to help us find
Well, I
some
think
extra space.
I think it would make sense though that if you actually go through this process and then you've got a definitive, like, this is stuff that we really don't want to, then you've got something specific versus just asking. If you have to go and ask for space, you're asking it with a specific culled
Right.
collection
That's
collection instead of just saying, hey, we need to store this stuff that we don't even know if it's worth storing. So I think that this is a smart
Right.
decision.
That's a great argument in our favor for hoping to get some more space someday.
Well, yeah.
So is value going to be assessed as in dollar value or historical value or some combination of both?
It won't be monetary value,
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. It will be it will be whether we have its condition, first of all,
Mhm.
whether we have a lot of items from one period, then that would be a way to save the best ones. But also we want to save what comes from Berlin families, because those are the stories we want to be able to tell when we exhibit these items.
Does that mean we have some number of items that came from else? Like,
Yes.
can you give an example of where we've gotten stuff that hasn't been from Berlin families?
I think we've had, in this historical society, we've had members who were collectors and
Okay.
recognized significant outfits, and those were donated.
Okay.
So they might, there are some things that weren't from Berlin, but
So when
they really broadened the scope of the collection.
Sure.
So when you talk about things that came from Berlin families, you're meaning like literally things that had been worn by people in Berlin.
That's right. That's
Okay,
right.
okay.
I do think Carolyn's point though is interesting. I don't know if that's part of the scope of what this person would do, but even to give you I know these things are replaceable in a lot of ways if God forbid something was to happen to them, but if she could give you a ballpark insurance value of, what's the whole collection worth, I think it's worth considering because, God forbid something did happen, it would be
It's
worth
a
it to at
hard,
least know
yeah,
that.
it's a hard question because you
But
can't,
if she's an expert, she may be able to,
yeah,
versus you guys might not be able to on your own. But if she's got that, to find out if she has that expertise, maybe that's a future thought. But I think
Mhm.
doesn't hurt to ask. But sounds like
Sure.
an interesting project.
Well,
Worth it.
you can't replace historical items, especially
No.
if they're part of your community, it's something from your
Yeah.
community, then that you can you can buy, if you've got the money, you can buy something from some other place that will tell part of the story or give it a context, but
Yeah.
um
May it never happen.
yeah. Well, we can certainly ask her, and it's a hard but a good question.
Well, I assume Wayne was referring to like the insurability of the collection so that,
Yeah, they all have value. And I don't even know
yeah,
sometimes when it comes to replacement. Sometimes they might give you funding, but other times they might just give you a settlement and it might not require replacements if you're
We
insured it for
actually,
a certain amount. So
we had to give, I think it was in Margaret's time, we had to put a value on the contents of our collection items that were in the Bullard House and that were in the curatorial building.
yeah,
And that included the actual fixtures, the shelving and the file cabinets. And I'm trying to remember what that figure was, but it was an aggregate. It was an aggregate.
sure.
It
Well,
wasn't itemized.
these types of things are subjective, so that's why they would need, documentation. Just good to ask somebody like that if they've ever done it, even just to find out the process. Might not be something you
Especially,
tackle
yeah,
today, but if you're paying her a fee to find out like, well, what's
yeah.
the process if you ever need to do it? You might even not decide to do it all. You might say these are a couple key pieces. She might say this is all this, but one or two is really something that you just don't even realize you have. So.
We do have some older pieces that are pretty remarkable, and she may be able to put a replacement value on those.
Yeah. Well, anyways.
So this is for 13,500, because of the 10% that's been accumulating in your pocket there, the historic pocket, you're well within the range of what's available in that. You've actually only asked for what, 220,000 or if that, I guess, and because of the fact that we didn't touch any of the money that went in this last round. You know, this is an amount that's in your account already. So
In the time frame you said was 9 months starting when? If it's
Well,
approved
yeah,
next June.
right. She is very busy, and way back when I first contacted her, she said that she could probably work no more than 2 days at a week for the duration, and now she's even busier. So we bumped it down to like 1 or 2 days a week. Maybe she would do 2 days for 2 weeks and then she might have to take a week off. She comes from Western Massachusetts, from Palmer, and so it's a hike for her to get to us.
Well, I think like with your stuff though too, unlike some of the other projects that we approve, it's like if she's got a fixed, fee that she charges, and even if it goes over a couple years or whatever it is to do the project, her fee is not going to necessarily change. She'd probably honor that. It's not like with materials and other stuff. So I was just kind of, we've had some conversation just about timeframes, and so
Yeah.
I'm just trying to start to think about those things when we
Yeah,
evaluate
well,
projects.
that's a good point because when I read read the CPA proposal that was funded in for historic Northampton, her fee at that time was $400. And so when in one of our emails, I put that in the mix of, of the funding, and she said that she was charging now $500 a day. But what she did was split the difference. So that's how we arrived at the $450
Right.
per
Nice.
day. Yeah, yeah,
Good.
Good starting
You know,
point.
you've talked a little bit about the length of time that it might take. What we're probably going to do when we meet, one of our discussions later tonight is going to be in regard to putting a deadline on some projects, at which time the CPA committee would have the opportunity to review the project and the amount of time it's taken to complete it, and with some consultation with the proponent, it may very well come to pass that we'd say, okay, enough time has passed and it doesn't seem like the project's going forward, and as a result, we're going to ask that the money be drawn back. At least that's one of the discussions that we're going to have later. It doesn't, as I think Wayne pointed out, it doesn't sound like that would be an issue in this case. But it is something that we're going to be talking about with anybody that's proposing projects for us.
Will
Other
you have
questions?
a signed contract for a certain dollar amount and a certain number of hours, regardless of how long it takes her?
well, she has estimated 25 days. There are
Okay.
6-hour days. And
So
we
can do
originally
that.
thought it would take 6 months, but now that she's busier, she said it would take 9 months. But in my proposal, I said 9 months to a year because I didn't want to constrain.
Sure.
But I think
No,
I think progress is the key,
Yeah.
in approaching completion. I think
Right.
if you get to the end of a year and nothing's happened, then it would be like, okay, what's going on? But it doesn't
Right.
sound like that's what's going on with you guys. So
Right. And my question was more, if it takes her 9 months, is she going to decide in 6 months that she really needs to charge $500 a day or whatever?
Yeah. Well, we have to have a contract, so
Yeah.
we'll have to
that's the
spell
way
all
it
of that
goes.
out. Yep.
Yep,
Great.
perfect.
Other questions? June, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I think that this will really, if we're funded, it will really help us get going on a more organized collection. It's the biggest part of our collection in terms of space and really volume if you break it down into categories. So this will be a great start.
Super.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
you have been asked to vacate some spots that things have been
Yep.
stored for quite a while, so
Yep, we're doing it now at the Red Fire Station.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the space issue is a reality big time. So this is a
Yep.
good effort.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank
June.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, June.
Yep, you're welcome. Thanks.
I was gonna ask for public input, but there is no public that I could see, because the seven of us are all that's here now, so. We'll pass over public input as a part of that particular project. So discussion of CPA policies. I've been negligent on item 1 in that I'm carrying around a document that I want to share with the Housing Trust, which is just a contractual understanding it's been recommended to us by the consortium that in the case of housing trusts where the money is turned over to the trust, and then the expectation is that it'll be spent over time, so there's no sunset on it like there may be on some of these other projects. But there is an understanding based on the town meeting vote for the project that the funds would be used for certain goals and expectations. So one of the things that I'll try to do, Beth, is come and chat with you guys and we'll send along some of the sample contract information that we got from the consortium.
Yeah, that would be great.
You meet what do you meet, the last Tuesday or something in the month, or?
Wednesday.
Nice.
We're meeting next week. We're meeting the Wednesday before Thanksgiving.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy mackerel.
Well, it would be the last, we want to walk through the warrant and make sure Scott understands that that the select board is actually presenting all of the warrant articles that refer to us and we're not presenting.
So that's something that I'll move forward on, and we can work
You
together
want
on
me
that.
to add you to the agenda for that meeting?
That would be wonderful.
Sure.
That would be great. Maureen will be happy with me if I do that. Right?
Well, I mean, all I'm saying is just try to get some policies into place. So if you all gonna want to do this agreement, you take a vote and say, we should have a housing trust agreement kind of thing. And then it can get added to your plan that will get done in the spring.
So I'll meet with the trust and then I'll come back and report to the committee and we'll see where we've got a mutually agreed upon approach, and then we can have some further discussion.
You've heard some of our conversations about this, right, Beth? About these issues in the past?
Oh, not really.
Oh, right.
Well,
I guess
not the
I guess
housing trust, but other projects.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
yes,
the only thing I would just add, I'm sure Tim will cover it well, is I just think that, it's the thing that I've said is I think that, we've used examples of, we've heard other towns that just sort of take whatever the percentage is and just give it to the housing trust, and there's no strings attached, there's no anything. And I think that the thing that this group, I mean, I can't speak for all of us, but anybody can certainly disagree. But I think, I view it myself as, our role is to, have stewardship over these funds. And so for us, just sort of turn it over without any understanding of the proposal or what you're going to use it for, how it's going to be used. I think I think it's to keep confidence in both from your perspective and the town's perspective of what you do and what we do, so that there's no questions about we raised this money and then you guys just turned it over and it had really no process of thinking about oversight. So it's just I think that's the goal, but that's what I think the point of the contract is, and I'm sure Tim will cover that more than
Sure. No, I mean, and that's certainly transparency and oversight are super important, and also us having enough access to enough money to move quickly when we need to in order to act. I mean,
oh yeah, I think that's true too,
right? And so figuring out how to do that, in a way that preserves everybody's trust and everyone understands what's going on, but we're not hamstrung by lack of funds.
Yeah, I
think
mean,
those are key.
Certainly the good news is that although the CPA money that you've got has got assigned uses that are pretty specific, the other funds that you'll be transferring over at town meeting don't have those types of restrictions to the same degree. And as a result, the access to, fluid cash is going to be enhanced significantly for you guys. So, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a real good position because what's $500,000 essentially. So,
Yeah, I mean, and I still think back to, Carter Street and when I first joined the committee and that whole opportunity and how we
Mhm.
really couldn't do anything with that piece of property because it was a very short turnaround and a decision needed to be made and there was really no mechanism,
Mhm.
so I mean, I would love to see, the housing trust, be able to be that mechanism so that, something can be acted on and so we don't lose these opportunities because we can't act. I mean, I think, those things don't happen. You can't wait a year. People need to move. So I think
Sure.
that's what you're dealing with, but I think it's great opportunities.
So we'll flesh that out and then take some action on that at a later date. The application submittal deadline, we have posted the November 1st deadline for a while. And we have agreed essentially that we'll take applications by November 1st for the annual town meeting. It's been our general policy of late not to anticipate putting articles for CPA use on the special town meeting unless it were an item such as the purchase of a piece of land that came out of the blue, couldn't be anticipated, and as a result, needed to be acted on quickly. And as a result, we might very well agree to have some CPA funds utilized in that special town meeting format rather than having to wait for the annual. When we met last, the rec committee, not the rec committee, but the Conservation Commission came to us and said, could they have the opportunity to file their application later than anticipate, than the November 1st deadline. And we said, no, give us what you've got and we'll work with that and you can enhance it over time with additional information. And then when Maureen and I met on November 1st, waiting for the 1 o'clock deadline, I think I showed up about 11:30. We got a request from the library to turn in their application late, and we said to them, no, we need something from you before the 1 o'clock deadline. And they agreed, and they gave us enough information so that we could understand the parameters of what they were going to be asking for. Last week, I got a call from Peg Stone asking if the rec committee could submit an application after the deadline. And I said that was something that as far as I was concerned, it was something that the committee would have to decide, and that we could talk about that a bit tonight as we were going to review some of these issues in terms of policy anyway. So if people have thoughts about whether we would entertain the notion of accepting an application after November 1st, I guess I'd be interested in hearing what people think.
I think it's a terrible precedent to treat different groups differently depending on who's advocating for them.
I mean, I would want to know why it has to be late. I mean, there's a lot of different context for, is this something that really came up last minute that is, some emergency need that, or is it just, they thought of it and they thought of it late?
Well, Maureen and I, when we met, were waiting for the rec committee to submit an application for the master plan because that had been something that had been discussed. Initially, I believe they got a proposal in the middle of the summer, August perhaps, outlining what would be done as part of a master plan for South Common. So there's been conversation about it for some time.
Is that the do we know that that's the project that they want to submit late?
So Felicia is now chairman of the rec committee, and she, I think, heard from Peg that we would talk about it tonight, the whole notion of whether to accept applications late or not. She forwarded to me not an application that we would normally use, but she sent that proposal that was created back in August as an example of the parameters of what they would be looking for. So it seems as though if they had an opportunity, that would be the project that they put forth.
I guess on face value, my opinion is that we've posted these deadlines for a long time. You know, this project, if that's the one, was brought up and it was discussed, you know, so it's not like they haven't had the information or the, you know, the understanding of our process, and they already had some information. And, you know, I don't know what the reasons are that they didn't file it, but I think it isn't something that we should be, especially where we just told two groups, you know, I mean, they knew the deadline was there. If they had asked like the other groups just before and said, you know, I think we're being flexible, say if you filed something, but, you know, they didn't make a formal filing. And with that particular project, we've actually had conversations about it without, you know, without an actual application, you know, just, you know, trying to understand whether or not that fits the scope of, you know, what CPA funds can be used for. And I think, you know, that's, you know, I think that that's part of why I think the article that Maureen is, you know, putting into the, you know, newsletter is helpful because it's putting the grid there. And I thought, you know, my understanding, you know, even though we had originally been told, yes, according to Stuart, that type of a project does conform, we then got subsequent information saying, no, master plans don't necessarily. I mean, I know we talked about the fact, like, well, depends on what they do, but it did talk about the fact that there's another bucket of funds that might be available. So,
Yeah.
you know,
I
I mean, that's, and, you know, that's debating the potential project. So I don't necessarily want to do that.
Right.
I think for me, the bigger issue is that it wasn't completed in time, even with plenty of forewarning and knowledge of what the deadlines were. So for me, I'm not necessarily interested in doing it, but I would certainly go back to them and say, you know, if they really feel that it's, you know, at a future date, you know, yeah, we could consider it, but I'm not really sure even at a future date, I would, based on the fact that I'm not seeing that it's going to qualify. So I guess, so it's kind of, I'm kind of between a rock and a hard place with that. So sorry.
Yeah, I mean, there are two issues, and the second one that you're raising is not what we're really talking about tonight in terms of, you know, would we accept a late application?
Well, I would say no, I wouldn't.
Right. I think it's a slippery slope. You know, I think if people come to us ahead of time, or you know, I mean, we're pretty much all here all the time. You know, if the policy becomes submit what you have by the date, then we as a group have an understanding that this is a serious application. They just need a little more time to dot their I's and cross their T's. And I think it shows, and I think it shows forethought and, you know, I think if we continually make exceptions, because we're all nice people and we all want these projects to happen, and like it's my gut instinct is like, oh yeah, come on. But I think, as Beth said, it sets a precedent that I think we would be sorry about later.
We have
Any
to,
other thoughts?
we have to plan too. I mean,
Yeah.
we have to plan like what's the expenditure, and if there's no real guideline, I mean, yes, there's an emergency. You already said that there might be an opportunity, but it would have to really be like a crisis. Like,
Yeah,
okay, we're going to lose something that's never coming back if we don't do it.
yeah, this clearly is not one of those situations, so.
Right. Well, exactly.
Yeah, I agree with what Carolyn had said, that once you set that precedent, it's very hard to go back and say, all right, and what is the library going to think to say, oh, the select board came and begged, so we allowed the conservation or rec committee, but we're not going to allow the library.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the fact that the select board asked, I mean, I don't consider that to have
No,
any
and
weight.
it
It's
wasn't,
just, they're a person and they've brought it to us. The fact
Right.
the
Yeah,
select board,
yeah, it
know,
wasn't the
It
officially
select.
wasn't the
couldn't
board, it was one
Right.
person.
Wasn't
It
the
was a
board.
resident. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Um, anything else on that right now?
We have to take a vote.
Just a discussion.
I think that I mean, what we're doing is we're just sticking to our policy.
Yep.
I think at some date in the future, we may solidify these policies in a more formal document than we've got. I mean, it's specified in a number of places already, but
It's in your plan.
we may make a policy document that speaks to a number of issues if we choose to down the road. But I can share essentially that we're just going to stick to the position that we've always been in, and that's November 1st is the deadline, and we feel that it's important to keep that. All right, number 3 is project progress update meeting requirement. One of the things that, we do ask proponents to give us an update on their projects, and they submit those project report forms, which we use when we do our CP3 report that we have to file each September 15th. But Maureen and I have been talking about that perhaps it might be wise to have folks come in and physically meet with us if they've got outstanding funds in a project, and make it a little more official and a little more transparent for the public too. So instead of just a report that we receive that we then include in our file to the state, that actually the proponent comes in and gives us an update at one of our meetings during, the summer months, perhaps. Did I articulate that properly, Maureen?
Yeah, and I think, the reason why I was bringing it up, because we did actually have an email from the applicant for the fields. And his question was valid in the sense that he's confused about if things change, does he have to come back to us? And like with the pavilion, what the practice was your committee took a vote per the direction of the TA that you were fine with the pavilion changing locations, and that the applicant didn't have to come back in. So again, to just kind of, what degree of change is going to initiate them having to come in and get your blessing or whatnot. So just that kind of policy thing, it's just like, It's like typical, you don't even think about it until someone's like asking unless something happens, so, you know. So, you just wanted, you kind of need some direction on how to, I mean, if you stay on the same thing, it's like, no, I guess they'd probably have to go to town meeting if the fields changed. But would you want to see them? If it, you know, because it's not just like the location, like with the pavilion, so so I guess that's kind of what it is. And then you just kind of want updates, you know, like honestly, when it came to the announcers booth, it was me that was kind of chasing what was happening with that, because the money was just sitting out there and you kind of wanted to close it out. So, you know, the progress reports are, I think, are a good thing, but I think it's nice to kind of know where the projects are too. I mean, especially when the housing stuff starts, but once you have a member on there, it's going to be like the same thing, how you guys get those updates, but it's good to know where things are going, you know? Yeah, so I mean, it's just that whole, you know, should they come back and say, we're 1/4 of the way, like, you know, but even
Well,
like,
as far as if the project changes, I think
yeah,
if it changes significantly enough that there's a question as to whether it still qualifies for CPA funds,
Mhm.
would be a no-brainer as to whether they need to come back to us.
and that's why they should come in and report to you, so you guys can make the decision. Do they, are
Does
the
it
funds
still
forfeited,
qualify?
does it still qualify? But you
Right.
won't know that unless you're meeting with them.
So are we saying every 6 months or quarterly or?
No, annually.
But okay, but well, I would advocate for 6 months though, because you know, if they have if we approved it in, you know, June with a budget that they cooked up in January, and now they're not even going to start something until, you know, I mean, hopefully they've padded it, but if you're not touching base 6 months saying, okay, well, where are you at? It's like, are you going to be out of money? It's like,
But they can't even start spending until July 1st. But even
I
though
know
it's
that, but they
approved in
can't.
May.
We know that, but their plan should be like, okay, if we get the funding, I thought they were starting in the fall, so I was surprised that nothing ever happened. So
Right.
you know,
So
so now they're not going to
yeah,
start till spring. Well, now they're a year plus beyond when they started getting quote, or almost a year beyond when they got quotes. What's that do? What's that do to pricing? You know, what's going to
right.
happen? You know, there's a whole bunch of factors. So that's why I'm a little concerned that a year is enough, because if they come in a year, you know, and then they realize they might realize in 6 months, oh, we're screwed. We're not going to have enough money.
Right.
Excuse my language.
So
They
they
could
should probably
they could get, or
right.
they should come back by November if there's some issues, so they could get back on. I mean, maybe that's the kind of issue too that we, you know, are dealing with about applications or late applications. If there's something that's already been approved and money's there and it needs an adjustment to
Right.
go back, that's a different animal. So I don't know. I mean, it gets complicated.
I maybe it's not
Sorry,
a one
Tim.
size fits all. Maybe
Right.
it's more like they provide you a timeline, and then you'll say that, you know, okay, you should be talking to us in 6 months. You'll be fine just with the progress report in the summer and kind of come and see us. So I think it could probably depend on the size of the project and what
Yeah.
the project is
I mean,
versus
the one-
trying to get everybody in 6 months. I mean, you guys, believe it or not, are a very busy and active board. So to throw an extra thing in there is a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think 6 months might be a little too soon to.
I think your point's well taken though, Maureen. Like if we put a timeline in, like June's project that she just pitched,
Yeah.
I mean, what's going to change?
Right.
But that field, that's huge concern.
Right. So we
But
could,
wouldn't it be nice if she came in with photos of stuff that's happening and then you guys would have that knowledge? That would be nice, like on an annual, like when she's at that, like, you know,
Well, yeah.
halfway part or something like that, like, yeah.
so, you know, the policy might very well read that on an annual basis, you're going to physically come and meet with the committee and present what it is you've accomplished. And it may be that your project's complete. It may be that it's halfway through, it's whatever. But I think as Wayne and Maureen are saying, there are other projects that we will ride herd on differently. And as a result, you know, when we are meeting with them initially, we might very well say, you know, we want an update from you at a 6-month cycle, you know, and make it clear that that's what we're after. And the other component, I guess, is that you know, Maureen or I could very well reach out to the proponent on those projects that we think are more critical and just say, you know, anything you want us to pass on to the committee. And that if there's a red flag, we say, why don't you show up and begin to explain what's going on that way. So that gives us sort of a multi-tiered approach, but I think it accomplishes what we're trying to do. Just make sure that no one runs aground on a project that, you know, was well intended, but, you know, ran out of money for the reasons that Wayne is suggesting, or, you know, has some other insurmountable problem that's going to force it to go back to town meeting to make a modification, in which case we may have to make a judgment as to whether we have to vote and speak up as to whether the project is still fundable from CPA. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think the written policy should be annually unless otherwise deemed necessary by the committee or something.
Yeah.
Some sort of caveat like that.
And then, you know, this sort of bleeds into number 4, the funding expiration used by, I mean, so, you know, when we initially agree and get them to, you know, sign and say, you know, who's going to be the point person for this project, you know, we explain the whole notion that, and we may build it into the article on the warrant that says, you know, this money is available for X amount of time, 2 years or whatever, and that if at such time 2 years passes, the committee has the authority to pull back funds if it's clear that they aren't going to be expended within a reasonable amount of time, or, you know, language like that. I think Maureen's found some examples of that in some other towns, and I think we could easily copy what some other communities have done and just be a lot more transparent at town meeting and with the proponents ahead of time. So. I think you shook your head, right? You have seen stuff from other towns, what, Groton probably, or Concord?
Yeah, in fact, I saw one, no one had followed up on it, and it was just sitting out there for 12 years
Oh,
Wow.
in Concord.
in Concord.
It was a very
Wow.
small amount, but someone had come with some good intentions to do something. And I don't know, they moved. I don't know what happened to them. They just like this, like
Wow.
no one ever picked up on. And that's that whole thing why like I like getting the invoices so that I can so I can see them, and then the TA sees them before June and Amy do anything with them, so we can see that there is actually activity.
Yeah.
But you have language that we can look at, because I even think what you just said is,
Yeah.
is like, if we reach out to the proponent and there's absolutely no response, well,
Yeah.
that's a thing.
That's a thing, yeah.
You know, it's
That's
like if
why
they-
on the application, there's a contact for 2 people.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like each application has like 2, not everybody fills it in. And I wish June Miller was still here, because Tim, what did I say? June should teach people how to fill out applications.
Yeah.
She's the only one I gave an A to.
It looked well filled out.
Yeah, hers was beautiful. Yeah.
We put 2 people, didn't we?
You only get a
On
B.
what? On Ethan's? I don't
Yeah.
know.
I think Ethan and Maddie.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know what? It's funny. Yeah, so I think he has his name twice or something. What did he? No, I'm just saying, but not everybody did. Yeah, Maddie's second. So Ethan's the applicant. Ethan's contact number 1, and Maddie's contact number 2. Yeah.
Yep.
So, but no, yeah, it's just a way. It's just checks and bounds. Like, you just want to be able to, you know, have some, you know, places where you can kind of check off what's happening. So.
Right. Well, especially because, if I'm not incorrect, we are all volunteer boards. So
Mhm.
those,
People can
you know,
change.
that can change. The turnover can be
Yeah,
an issue.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's one thing too, if it's a town board that's the proponent, but if we get something where it's something else that we choose to, it's another group or something, that could be a different animal.
right.
Yeah. And then the fifth point was the finished project site visits. I don't think, have any of us visited the
The sign crew did.
Yeah, we
Yes, Wayne and
visited.
I have visited a lot of the places. What would you like to know?
I call them the sign crew.
Did you visit the scoreboard?
No, which
No,
doesn't,
actually, we
no.
didn't.
Well, we were there, but we didn't really look too closely at it.
Right. I've seen the scoreboard from afar. I haven't examined it closely, but
Well, we did see the pickleball courts. We did see
The
the
community
fence.
fence.
and you saw
Um,
Shoe Pond. Well, or the
Yeah.
act anyway.
The edge, the edge.
And
Yep.
so, yeah, but the notion of visiting, and then Marty and I have talked about his photographing some of these things. So I think we'll begin to do that too, because he could easily capture. He's got some, I think, already, but having a file and then being able to use those photos in our reports and stuff would be great. So anything else in regard to policies that we want to talk about now?
I like Carolyn's suggestion of having a policy kind of page, like outside of the plan. Is that what you're thinking, Carolyn?
Yeah, just so that people understand, the more information you can give people and the
Yeah.
more you can set expectations,
Mhm.
the less chance of things being misunderstood.
Yeah.
That is the wisdom of the day.
So, Maureen and I can draft up something that we can bring back to everybody as a separate part of the plan. Because
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Awesome.
chair updates, warrant article. So as Beth has said, and we've seen the warrant for the annual town meeting, there is the article that reshapes this committee and makes the appointing authority for the community housing from the Housing Trust. And so that will be voted on at the annual town meeting.
Is it the annual one or the
That mean the
term?
Special.
special, excuse me.
Sorry, just want to be clear.
I started to work on what's available in the different buckets, and I realized that what I thought June had given us was not related to the individual buckets. So I'm going to try to work up some numbers independently and then go and visit with June and see if she's in general agreement with what we've got. Because I think as we proceed with the proposals, we need to have a rough idea. I mean, we know that the Historic Commission's got enough in their bucket to cover the 13.5 or whatever it is, and there aren't substantial requests this time. So I think in a lot of cases, the funds that have been, because we didn't expend money that we had collected, that we were collecting last year, we didn't spend any anticipated funds. So when we get to our annual town meeting in May, those funds are completely available because we haven't encumbered any of those from the last time. So everybody's got roughly 50,000 in each of those pockets, and in general, I think we're going to be able to stay within the parameters of what's available without any trouble. So that's good news. But I'll work on that with June, and I may not be able to report at the next meeting about that, but maybe the one after. And then the Coalition News, what did we get? We got
148, 159, something like that.
159,662, and then we collected 347. So a little more than 500,000.
What?
So the percentage was, I mean, I think for a while they thought that the percentage match from the state might catch up to what last year did, given some of the revenue that they had coming in the last quarter, but it didn't materialize. And so that we ended up with a percentage match that was less than what we'd received the last round. And of course, there's these other towns, Worcester's come in now, and Westboro and Shrewsbury and stuff. There's 200 towns in the program. 7 towns voted on it this last time around and failed, which was quite a few. So I don't know if that's indicative of what may happen going forward. That the last 150 towns that are out there that haven't chosen to participate, the will isn't there, and maybe that things will slow down for a while. I don't know. Worcester County is underrepresented significantly. When you look at the CPA map of towns that are participating, once you go west of us, there's just a ton of towns in Worcester County that aren't part of this program. So I know the commission has been talking about trying to encourage more towns to participate. And I've, of course, said, well, we don't necessarily need to do that. We can leave them out. But of course, Maureen, she thinks.
Oh, God, that was a terrible thing to say.
I know, she thinks everybody ought to participate.
But the report was interesting. But the report was interesting because there don't seem to be as many at the higher percentage that we are. When you saw you only got 18%. So even if more get in, it seems like the trend too is that they're going lower. So that's, and I think we're spending it wisely. I mean, it's things that would either not get done or,
Yeah.
Yeah, there were, I think there were 17 towns that exceeded our percentage. And what, half a dozen or so were at 100%, but basically they were below $100,000 in terms of what they generated and what they received. So, we're still right up there with the best performing towns just because of our size and all. The formula works in our favor, evidently.
And our 3% doesn't help. Doesn't hurt either.
Yeah.
That was smart.
Have I forgotten any coalition updates, Maureen?
That's about it.
Member input and updates. Anybody have anything to share?
I can share that we got our quote from the highway department, and now it didn't include everything, obviously the benches and stuff. So we're just pulling those final numbers together and fully anticipate being prepared, cross my fingers, on December 3rd.
Good.
And you can send me that stuff and I can try to get it out to everybody.
Yeah,
before
as
the
soon
meeting.
as Ethan is on an airplane right now coming back from California. So we plan on getting together either this week or sometime next week to get all those final numbers put together.
Yeah. Package it all back up. Okay.
Yep.
Good.
Anyone else? Beth,
I
you want to unofficially announce anything?
No,
Okay.
have some sign update stuff.
Yes, I'm ready.
So I don't have numbers, but I did have a good conversation with Paul Tucker from SignLogix, just with some of the questions that we had about stuff. So we talked about the yard arm sign that you guys were asking about, and and Carolyn did take a picture of the Sudbury a Sudbury Valley one that's in Sudbury, that's a yard arm sign. But you know, in talking to Paul, it's there's a lot of challenges. It's that height off the ground. Part of it's because the sign's small. A bigger sign like ours would make it a lot less stable. He wouldn't necessarily recommend that. Because of that, he said also the higher it goes, the harder it is to get a straight post that's not going to warp or do other things, which is a challenge. I mean, that's like I think probably 10 feet or whatever. So he was saying, or maybe even higher. I think these would be like 10-foot posts. Well, maybe not even 10 or maybe 6 foot, whatever you're saying. But it would be our signs would probably be about 3 feet off the ground would be the height where the sign would start. So he's really not a fan of the yard arm. To me, it seems less stable. The good news is that, you know, we had talked about the PVC versus the pressure treated and had a bigger conversation. And initially, I think I had given the impression, because that was my impression, that it would probably make the signs weather better or last longer, but the PVC doesn't actually go into the ground, so it doesn't actually prevent rot at the base. So what it's really doing is, if you're gonna paint them, he said if you paint pressure treated, it just peels. So if you really want something that looks nice or whatever, that's why the PVC cover. So he really didn't see a problem if we wanted to save money and wanted something that looked a little more natural, you know, in certain areas, and we could decide what that would be. But like for the conservation land, if we wanted something that's a little more rusticy looking and not PVC pipes with the sign, we could do that. So I don't know if you have questions about the yard arm versus the other, but he just said it would be a lot more stable.
Did you ask him about snow?
Yes. He said the signs do take a real beating, especially if they are set perpendicular to the road. So he said a lot of like parks and things like that, that's why they're set parallel with the road. So they're more, so they would not take a full snow impact of like a plow hitting it, you know. And he said the bigger the sign, the more the damage. He says it's a sign like that with that kind of impact can get torn right apart. So to me, it would make sense that any of the ones that we would be putting near the edge of a road would probably be best served being parallel to the road. If we wanted to do something like at the, you know, where the pavilion is going to be in the soccer fields, that's not going to be having the high volume. You know, we could do that as a two-sided if we wanted. We might not even feel the need to do it. That one-sided might suffice. So, you know, I think, you know, while the initial concept as we were talking was perpendicular would give us more visibility with drive-by and stuff. He also said too, he said parks tend to be more one-sided, but he said that perpendiculars tend to be more for promotional value depending on what they're doing, whereas more park type signs, which this sort of would be. I said, well, we're trying to promote it, but perhaps not in that way. So I think that, to me, my recommendation would be to stick with the one-sided, install them parallel to the road. You have to figure out the setback. I'd probably recommend going with they're cheaper, just a untreated, you know, pressure treated posts. He said you could stain them if we wanted to you know, obviously to preserve them better, so they're not just raw, but they've got some treatment on them. And we could put a cap on them to try to prevent water infiltration from the top, which might be a good idea. And that's not a lot of money. But you know, and then, you know, if we want something a little more dressy for the park, and we could do it, you know, with the PVC cover, but it doesn't sound required. I did ask him on the 2 aluminum signs, the one for the fence at the farm and the pickleball court. We could probably get them installed either ourselves, or if the town wanted to do it and we didn't want to have to pay an install fee, he said those are easy enough to do. We could probably just take care of those ourselves. And the other thing I was thinking about is, you know, while the design has been, I was really thinking about this because of the Powder House Hill one, but I think we could do it everywhere. You know, we talked about it not wanting to be kind of garish and really bright. So even though it's been like white with a green lettering, we can color the white to be like an off-white, or so it's not like Arctic white, like bright like that. We could choose like a more of a toned down ivory or something like that that's a little classier and isn't going to stand out like a sore thumb, like in a conservation area where we just wanted to have a little softer feel. So I thought that was a good conversation. So we really had a really probably 15-minute conversation, covered a lot of ground, just kind of gave me a lot more nuance to it. So I guess what I would recommend, and then if you're all in agreement, I would go back with the signs, all the sizes that we designed, kind of reprice it up with the just the untreated, the not PVC covered posts. Stick with the 2 posts. He says those will just be a lot sturdier and last longer. And just change out the signs and redesign the sign content. But I told him we probably wouldn't do any of the in-ground signs until spring. And now that we're already at winter, we might just wait for all of them until then. But that's up to the committee to decide. But if we wanted the pickleball on the farm sooner, we could do that. That's my
Questions?
update.
Thoughts?
We do need to get in touch with the property owner at 72 Carter and discuss a location and kind of let them know that we're going to put a sign on the easement. And
Yeah, I can design the color change, and so we have a more definitive. I just don't have the contact, but at least now we know what kind of sign posts.
right.
And Wayne, I need to make contact with you to get a the in progress sign for the Bullard House.
I know. I've got your email. I'll email you after this, and we'll make a point of hooking up to get that. I'll get that to you this week. I'm so sorry about that.
No, I've been meaning to get a hold of you too, and I haven't done it. I apologize.
We'll split it. That's all. We're all good. We'll just get it this week. I look at them every day in my laundry room.
Other thoughts about what Wayne has presented?
So do you want the 2 aluminum signs this year, or do you want to just wait till spring?
Don't need to hold up because we're not going to put him on a signpost. We're going to attach him to the existing fence. So they can be put up at any time, right?
They can. So if we want them now, we can. I mean, I could, we're getting into December, but it's not snow. So if we want them, I mean, the tennis courts and stuff probably aren't used as much, but if we want to get them up, we can get them up.
They'll only be more expensive if we wait.
Right.
Me too. So.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure you try to not get too close to the end of the fiscal year, so you have those admin fees to apply to them. So.
Right. And if there's any feedback, it would be good to only have 2 signs so that adjustments could be made for any future signs if there's anything that people feel strongly about.
Because Horseshoe Pond, we're not going to do until after the parking lot's in.
Correct.
So the only 3 that we would do right now are the 2 on the fence and then the 1 at Powder House, right? Am I forgetting any off the top of my head?
Powder House.
Because the pavilion, we're not doing that one.
Right. The pavilion and the fields, there's really nothing
to
do yet. Yeah.
All right. Well, let me pull the numbers together for our next meeting. I'll redo the designs. Carolyn, if you can figure out, or somebody knows who wants to make contact with the property owner, and then we can via email or in a conversation or a visit or whatever, show them the design and decide on a location.
Right. Well, they certainly know his address.
Well, that I know, but if you want to go knocking on the door, we can, I guess.
Right.
But I don't know that we do. I don't know that we do that in this.
Yeah, and it might not be until spring, but I'd rather.
Oh, definitely get it okayed now.
Yeah, and I'd rather give notice sooner than later. Do we think a letter?
Sure, if you have an address, yeah, if we can do that and I can get the design and just say this is what it is and the signs
Okay.
and we think probably what about 5 feet back off the road? 6 feet more,
Um,
just to help me communicate with Sign Logics.
right. That might require another swing by the property just to see what makes sense
Well,
with
it's fine. I
measuring.
mean, we'll probably want to stake it before we do it anyways.
Right.
but-
Right. And maybe even have the property owner with us when we do that.
All right,
So
well,
that we
first,
can
first
all
steps
agree on the
first.
site.
First
yeah.
steps first, we'll get it approved. Okay, I have what I need to move
Tim, do you
forward.
remember his name? His first name?
Travis.
Travis. Thank you.
I'm pretty sure it's Travis.
Yep.
Thank you. You know, it's a long process, but it'll be a better product for all this conversation.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we're all set with signs.
Thank you.
Next
Mhm.
meeting is December 3rd, and the one after that is the 17th. On the 3rd, we're having 4 presentations, each 15 minutes. There'll be the library, the parking lot, the town hall access, 1870 town hall, proposed access, and a proposal from 19 Carter for electrification to add lighting to the, well, electrification to the back shed and lighting to the outdoor venue where they do programmatic stuff. So those will be the 4, and they'll start at 7:45, 15 minutes. I think that's what we did, right, Maureen?
That is what we did. Do you think we should, like just where we were with June, do you want to try to bump them up at all?
You mean like 5 minutes or something?
We could, I mean, you've got all 4 that night. You're gonna be starting with the town hall, 1870 town hall would be first. Carter Street, then the parking lot, then the,
I mean, why don't we,
because I
leave-
can't think of what else are we gonna have? Is there anything else?
Right.
that
Do we
can-
need?
'Cause you
Oh,
can
we
do
start at
minutes, you can
7:30.
do-
Yeah.
we
you
do
can do
minutes, we
minutes,
do
you can do
Wayne's,
minutes at
Wayne's
the
gonna talk,
end.
Wayne's gonna talk to us about signs. I'm
Okay.
hopefully gonna say something about budgets.
All right,
And if we screw up and start late for some reason, then we've got, we're all right. I think it'll
so
be,
then, so then for you and me,
yes, ma'am.
we went to approve the agenda. This is gonna be tight.
Yeah, we're meeting on Thanksgiving morning, right?
That's what I just looked at. Um, I think we're gonna have to meet next Tuesday. Cause I think you're great, Tim, but my kid's coming home. That's where I'm at by Wednesday, so.
I don't have a big Thanksgiving plan, so if you want to invite us, that's fine.
Oh, I could do that. But you wanna try for
Tuesday,
Tuesday and
3:30?
I'm gonna have to say 4:30.
4:30 Tuesday.
Yeah. Just to approve the agenda. Is that gonna be enough time to get maybe we could see June too.
Yeah, maybe we'll get lucky.
God, I'll tell you, it's crazy that we're at the end of November because this weather still feels like it's like September to me. It's really hard
Right.
to get your heads wrapped around it, right?
Yeah.
But we really are there. And then the only other thing that for admin matters was I didn't put it on the agenda because we didn't get it after. TA is definitely looking for everybody to do that ethnics course, not
Oh, that's
just.
right.
I
Wait,
signed
yeah,
up.
I know. There's just 2 dates, right? One's December, one's February.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is this, is the stuff we always did with the online stuff not
No,
I
that's,
think-
what,
Yeah,
that's still available. I took it the other day.
but I
Okay.
think that this is a step up on that for some reason.
but
that-
it's not required that we have to step up if we do the,
I don't know, send Kristen an email. I'm not sure. This, I've
I
never
have
seen
very
this
little
done.
interest in getting up like 3 hours earlier than usual to
Yeah,
hear
it-
things. I've been
Like at-
doing
Is it during
every
the
2
10
day?
years
o'clock
for,
When is
on a
it?
Thursday morning.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah, I can't do them during the day.
yeah,
No,
No,
I mean,
right.
that's not a
Except Tim,
reasonable, that's
you
not a
said-
reasonable expectation of volunteers to
I
try to
agree, it's not
take out
reasonable.
No.
time during the middle of their day when they're working.
Yeah.
No.
So if not, I
Tim-
have to take the online one, right?
the online one's super easy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It's a
got
lot
easy.
of reading,
It's an hour.
so
but
has that changed? So
I can,
I was,
I'll try to find out a little bit more about that, but like I said,
Right.
this is the first time I had ever seen this ever come through.
oh, they send it every once in a while.
Yeah.
And you go and
Yeah,
you
but
do the
this
online
course
one
thing-
and
Yeah,
Hmm?
I've never heard about the course though, that you could, that like there'll be 100, like this has gotta be new since Zoom, the course, like a live person telling you this stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
don't take the class. Don't, it
Yeah.
just, yeah, especially because if you do the online test
Yeah,
or the
I
online,
signed up for
you-
February because I can't put anything else in December. That just never happens.
Right.
Yeah, right.
but
yeah.
you can, even if you get some of them wrong, you can go back and answer
Oh, I know.
them until you get it right.
And
Carolyn.
Did we get the link on that
You
in
can
what you
actually,
sent? Oh,
Yeah.
just for the sign up for it, not, but the other one would be on the, mass.gov. Yeah.
yeah, it looked like that one had changed. I'm not sure whether I'm within my 2 years or not, but it looked like it was now 2 courses instead of one. I just
Okay.
haven't had the time to follow up on that. All
so,
I know is every time I take it, I just notice that there are some clear loopholes in either the training or the law itself, and I
Yeah.
laugh a little and move on with
So-
my life.
so I took it the other day. It's an hour. There's 9 parts. The biggest one is 20 minutes or something. And, you know, at a couple stages, it asks you some questions and it just says, you know, yes or no, you're right or wrong. It doesn't punish you in any way in terms of having to go back and take the question again.
Right. And are they still all multiple choice?
It's true or false.
Oh,
They ask
Oh,
you,
right.
I think they give you 5 questions. They say, you know, is this true or false? And then there were 3 scenarios toward the end where they gave you a hypothetical situation. You know, a planning board member has a dispute with a butter that, you know, and then they come to the planning board. Are you supposed to do whatever, you know, that sort of thing. So
So not pistols at dawn.
no, no, saber.
I
Saber.
believe that's only in New Jersey.
All right, 9:02.
No,
We have a motion
Make a motion to adjourn.
and second, non-debatable. MJ,
Aye.
Ellie,
I
Carolyn,
Aye.
Wayne,
Hi.
Tim is I.